Hey guys, thanks for joining. All right, today's topic is mediation. Now, I'm a family law attorney in the state of Tennessee. That's the only state I'm licensed in. But I do a fair amount of mediation, of family law mediation. If you're watching this, I anticipate that you probably are headed to go see a mediator. Maybe I'm your attorney. Maybe I'm taking you to mediation. However that shakes out, here's what you got to know about mediation. The mediator facilitates a meeting between the parties, and that meeting can occur in one room or in separate rooms, which we call a caucus, depending on the style of the mediator. Now, I was trained to do mediations in one room, but most attorneys don't like to do mediations in one room. Most attorneys like to do mediations in caucus, in separate rooms. So for the most part, these days, I mediate in separate rooms. And most mediators that I've been to, they mediate in separate rooms. So from that standpoint, you need to prepare yourself mentally that you're probably going to be in a separate room. You might bump into the other party in the hallway of the mediator's office. That's okay. That's all right. If there are issues of domestic violence, the mediator needs to be aware of that. You need to be using a mediator that is trained in domestic violence. But most importantly, your attorney needs to know that we've got domestic violence issues. Once you've worked through that, then you need to get yourself ready to go to mediation. Most of that can be done by the client. Most of that does not require, unless you've got complex tax issues or you have complex financial issues, then most of the prep for a mediation can be done by the client. And here's why I say that. I can spend a whole lot of time as an attorney going through and reviewing and getting to know the ins and outs of your case as though I'm getting ready to try that case. And I can do that, and I can spend a full day doing that. But when I do that, I'm going to charge you for that time that I spend. If you are in the middle of a typical divorce where you're fighting over a house, you might have a boat, you might have a couple of kids, those are all pretty standard facts that go along with the practice of family law. And I don't mean that to discredit anything that you're going through or anything that you're experiencing. But I always try to practice law from the standpoint of how would I want an attorney representing me to spend my retainer, the money that I have paid them. I need to get the most use out of that retainer as possible. So I try to take that into consideration. Now, if you say to me, nope, I need to sit down and prep with you to go to mediation, I will. I'll do it. But I need you to understand that while we're spending that 3 hours getting ready, you're going to pay me for that. And then we're going to go to mediation, and you're going to pay me to sit there at mediation. So I always try to be wise about it. I don't volunteer to do that kind of stuff because typically if I'm in a 6-hour mediation with you, I'm going to have an hour to flip through the paperwork and get myself up to speed on everything that's going along. And if I've been actively engaged with you as we have gone through this process, I know this case well enough to go into mediation and get you the result that you want. Because I'm a mediator, I try to allow my clients to participate in the process in a way that's meaningful for them without me running my mouth and being the advocate that I can. Now, I recognize that there are some attorneys that don't take that approach. There's a lot of attorneys that don't take that approach. I deal with those on a regular basis when I'm conducting the mediation. But that's not the way I handle it. I try, if you want to reach an agreement on the day we get to mediation, it is a rare time for me to say, yeah, I don't agree with that and I'm going to mess this up. Because mediation is a very personal process. It will resolve a whole lot of issues in ways that legal minds and the attorneys and the judges can't get done. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that we're not capable. I mean that we don't live your life. I mean that I don't get out there on a daily basis and run your kid to whatever extracurricular activity, and I don't know the ins and outs of your work schedule the way that you do. And I don't know that your significant other's family always has Christmas on Christmas Eve and that you want your kid to continue to participate in that every year. Those are things you know. I don't know those. So when we get to mediation, you having that fact specific information is going to be very critical for setting out the kind of parenting plan that you want to set out. Things that I wouldn't ordinarily do, things that the judge wouldn't ordinarily do, because it's too ingrained in your day-to-day. But if y'all have worked out a plan or work out a plan in mediation where one parent picks the kids up every afternoon and keeps them from 3 to 5 and makes sure that they get dinner, and the other parent picks them up at 5 o'clock and keeps them overnight, I can get behind that and support it. It's not something the judge would ever really order necessarily, not at trial. So from that standpoint, I believe that it's critical for you to work through the process, kind of like we did in the prior videos where we talked about the setting out the budgets and the financial planning, that kind of thing. You need to really think long and hard about what you want to do with the kids, what kind of maneuvers you would make with the house. Do you want to sell the house? Do you want to refinance the house and buy the other side out? Do we need to get an appraisal done so that we know what the value is? There's a lot that goes into that. All of these things which I know that we have probably talked about, and all these things that I know other attorneys have talked to their clients too. So when you're preparing for mediation, those are the things that you need to take into consideration. Again, if we're sitting in a mediation here in my jurisdiction, you're sitting there for 3 hours as a minimum, because that's what most mediators require. If you're working toward progress, then there was no reason for us, for the attorney to really insert themselves into the role of the mediation, because the process really of mediation is intended to be genuinely between the parties. Certainly you need your attorney there, because there will come legal questions that you're going to have questions about. And you need to be able to consult with your attorney. You'll need your attorney to sign off so that your attorney's confident, oh yeah, this is what you wanted. Yes, you thought about these items when you put it all together, and yeah, we put it on paper and it says what you intended for it to say. That's the purpose of mediation. That's the way I operate when I go to mediation, when I take my clients to mediation. And I do that, hopefully, not because I want to not hold my client's hand, not because I don't want to facilitate and walk through those steps with my client, but I also recognize my clients are typically very capable of pulling that information together for themselves, and I try and respect that without running up the bill in such a fashion that it can't be paid. So I hope that that explains kind of the reason that you're watching this video and not sitting here with me. I hope I've covered most of the things that you believe will be important at mediation. If you need a copy of a parenting plan, because I typically give those out whenever we do our initial settings. But if you haven't gotten a copy of the parenting plan, reach out and let me know. We'll send that to you if children are at issue. If you need an income and expense affidavit because we need to update that, let me know and we'll get that to you. Because again, those are going to be the things that we're going to be talking about. If you don't know what your house is worth, I need you to do some research. I need you to figure that out. If you don't know what your pension or your 401k is worth, I need you to figure that out. Those are the numbers that the mediator is going to need in order for us to do an effective statement to get to the mediator. Ideally, I like to send a statement of mediation. I like to do that several weeks in advance to the mediator, particularly if it's going to be a large packet, so that they have time to read it long before we get to mediation, so they have an understanding of what we're dealing with. All right, I think that covers everything that we needed to talk about for mediation. If you have questions, don't hesitate to call the office. Otherwise, I'll see you at mediation. Thanks.